I just wanted to make a video about this ukulele. It is, I don't know, it's backwards, but if you can see, it says Ammoon, upside down, Ammoon ukulele. And I got this in the mail. It's a 21-inch Ammoon ukulele with Aquila strings. There's the kind of strings it has. Fluorocarbon white strings, and then it also has the EQ on the side. It doesn't have a tuner, it just has the EQ with the treble and the bass and the volume. A UK 2000 EQ, and you put a little, where's the battery? You put a square battery, the square batteries that you put into things. You put that in there. I can't remember what the name of the battery is. Let me look at one of these batteries. You put one of these batteries in, and you just slide that in and out. It's really easy to get in and out. Anyway, I bought one of these, or actually bought two of these. I got a 2-4. I made an offer to buy two of them for a certain price. And they were, this was like during the Black Friday sales, and, they were running a pretty good price on these. But I couldn't afford, I wanted to get two for gifts, but I couldn't afford to buy both of them for what they were offering. So I'm pandemic poor at this time. Anyway, I made an offer, and they said yes. And we went back and forth a couple times, but it came within what I could afford. I always start a little bit lower on my bids. When I do a bid, I start low. Anyway, so when I got the ukulele, what I noticed was some of the strings were buzzing. And not only that, they were loose. Like, they would be loose when I was playing them. And I thought, well, this isn't going to work. Why are they loose? And there was nothing on the auction that said that there was anything wrong with these things. So I think what happened is I got such a great deal that they picked two ukuleles that probably weren't the best, right? And just sent them to me. And then on one of the ukuleles, literally the EQ right here. See where these screws are? Those screws were coming out, and this was coming out. It was like halfway out, like all the way up to here. I could pull it all the way out. And this was attached back here, but this was coming out. So there was literally a hollow hole, So I figured, could I glue that? Could I get it fixed? I didn't know. I'm not a luthier, So since this one had the buzzing and the loose strings, and so did the other one, and, of course I went online and looked, and it was saying that it could be the bridge, it could be the nut up here, it could be the frets need to be sanded. I'm like, you know what? I'm not a luthier, and I don't know what to do in this case. I called a luthier, and they told me how much it was going to be. And it was going to be more to take one in, to have it looked at even, than I paid for both of them. So I was like, all right. So I emailed the buyer or the seller and said, hey, is there any way I can get these replaced? Any way I can send these back to you and get two new ones, blah, blah, blah. And told him what the issue was, told him that it was going to cost more to go just take one to a luthier, that, it's going to cost twice as much to take them both. And then I showed them video and pictures of the other one where the side EQ was literally halfway coming out of, and there's a lot of times that these people they're selling them, but they're getting drop shipped from another part of the country, or they're getting drop shipped from another country. Now, this said that it came from New Jersey. I don't know. But whoever the seller is sometimes doesn't see the product before it gets sent out, and they just get what their supplier sends to them. Or they have stock in an Amazon warehouse, and they're working through Amazon, and they're shipping it to them. So you can't always blame the seller, because they're probably not the one who packaged it. They're probably not the one who sent it out. So I know sometimes when you buy things, you'll see that yours is coming from maybe 2 states away, But then later on, you'll go back on maybe to buy a second one because you like the first one and you're going to buy it for somebody else. I did this with a bike trainer. I bought a bike trainer. It came from 2 states away from me. But then when I went back on to buy one for a relative, because it was such a great buy and I really liked it and they wanted one, and I said, well, I'll buy it, just reimburse me the money. That one was coming from the whole other side of the country, which was closer to them. So it was good that it was coming from there because it wasn't going to take that long to get to them, maybe less than a day or a day. But they have supplies all over the country in different warehouses, and Amazon does that. They have warehouses. So you can't always blame the buyer. So that's why I always try to work with them and just say, listen, I got this. I realize you might have drop shipped this. Is there any way that I can send this back and get something else? Eventually, through talks and telling them what was wrong and showing them what was wrong. Because like I said, strings were buzzing. Strings were actually loose. Like I would get them tuned and they were in tune, but they were like really loose. It was like I was pulling up on the strings and yeah, it sounded like it was in tune, but it was like, you know, it was like, why is the string loose? I didn't understand what was going on. I've had really good quality instruments, guitars in the past. You know, I'm just starting to get into the ukulele thing. And I haven't had a ukulele. I've got a couple ukuleles. I haven't had either one of them come in with loose strings or any of these problems. So I didn't have this issue. So they gave me my money back for both of them. Which, okay, now they're basically both free. And I was surprised they gave me the money back. I really thought they were going to want me to send them back, blah, 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 right? So now these were free. Now I felt like, well, they're free. You know, I was scared to touch them before because I didn't want to mess anything up. So I started looking for videos online. And of course, people were saying, oh, sand the bridge down, sand the nut down, sand the frets down. Well, before I did any of that, I found another video where a woman was saying to take a wrench, and this is the wrench. These are the tools I use. These are little screwdrivers. The eyeglass screwdrivers are just small screwdrivers with small heads. $1 at the dollar store, you can buy these, right? And they're just little screwdrivers for little jobs. And you can use them for eyeglasses or just small screws that you have around on items. This is a little rusty, but this is an old 10 millimeter wrench that I found in my toolbox that an ex had left behind. And you can take that 10 millimeter wrench and you can put it around here. See, it fits around the nut, and you can tighten this. So that little nut that's on there, you can tighten that. So you just take it and tighten it. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So when you're going right, it's tight. When you're going left, it's loose. So I went ahead and I tried it because I saw a video of a woman who said, do that. And again, 10 millimeter wrench for this. I don't know if it's worked on all the ukuleles that I have that have these nuts on them. Okay. So she said, just tighten that. Don't tighten them too much. She said, just tighten them enough. Don't tighten them really tight. Because if you tighten them too tight, you can damage the tuning mechanism behind, right? So I did that, and that helped a little bit, right? So some of the buzzing stopped. Some of the strings weren't as loose. And then someone else in another video suggested tightening these little screws on the side. See those little screws on the side? But they warned, don't tighten it too much because then there's a mechanism in between here and the tuner that you can break if you tighten it too much. And then once you try to tighten the strings, you'll break it. So just tighten those just enough, not too much. Those little screws that are on the sides of the tuners, if you have that. And with these newer closed tuners, a lot of them do. And then, as you can see, when I tightened the nuts on the front, when I tightened these nuts on the front, some of the tuners on the back, flip it over, they got a little crooked. You can see they're a little crooked, like they went off. I don't care. I really don't care at this point. I could probably fix that and get them adjusted, but it's playing, so I'm not going to mess with it. This one's a little crooked. They were straight before. So, but the other thing I did is I tightened these little screws on here too, before I did any more tightening on the front, once I noticed that these were moving around a little bit. But once I did that, once I tightened this little nut up front. Once I tightened these little screws on the side, not too much on either one, and once I tightened these little screws back here with the said tools that I have here, and then I bought this little set at the dollar store, then the ukulele actually now plays well. And I waited for the strings to stretch, you know, because you have to let your strings stretch. Your fluorocarbon strings will stretch. And I waited for them to stretch, and yeah, probably a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks in, this is sounding pretty good. So there's my solution. And this even has the little, you know, strap peg on the bottom there. It's pretty nice. So my solution for this, for anybody who gets these, and they might have some buzzing or even loose strings, tighten the nuts, tighten the screws on the side, tighten the little screws on the back. That's what I did. And they're playing just fine. You know, just when you tighten these nuts on the front, just make sure you're not moving your tuners around on the back too much and making them lopsided. But it's worked, and it looks really good. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with the one where the actual tuner is coming, you know, this EQ thing is coming halfway out. Like, literally the screws on the side of the tuner are, if you see these little screws here, are kind of warped and loose. So I'm going to have to figure out what to put in there, you know, to so that the screws will stay in. You know, I've seen people use toothpicks and glue to put into a hole and then let that dry and then screw the screw in. I don't know. I'm going to figure out if there's any suggestions that anyone's tried, if you've done anything. And then, you know, just basically I'm just going to put wood glue, I guess, around the edge, because it was like half of this was coming off. So once I can fix the screw holes, then I can put wood glue around the edge and glue that down, because now it sounds like really hollow because there's a hole in the side. But I've also fixed that. I've also tightened those nuts and those screws, and it sounds a lot better, you know, just with that, but it still has that hole in it. So it does sound kind of hollow even when I play it acoustically. But I will say this, on the other one where the EQ is coming out, the EQ actually works. You know, it actually does work. So at least I got that. So once I get that hole in the other one, the second one that I bought, once I get that EQ put back in, maybe I'll make another video on what I did. But there you go. There's the screw set that I got at the dollar store. An old rusty 10 millimeter, I don't know if you call that a wrench. And then here's the battery that you use. And yeah, now it's playing pretty well. And it's got the Aquila strings, you know. So if anyone gets these, and it's actually, I've been really happy with it. And fortunately, they gave me my money back, or I wouldn't have taken those risks and done these things. But I haven't had to touch the nut. I haven't had to touch the bridge. And I haven't had to sand down any of the frets at all. And also another thing that was suggested in videos is if you're getting buzzing, you may not be holding the strings down the way that you should. You may not be playing correctly. If you're getting a lot of buzzing, you might need to press those strings down a little more to keep it from buzzing. So that's another suggestion someone gave. But there you go. I just thought I'd put that video up for anybody who's gotten these and might have those issues or might have had those problems. The other thing I noticed was this is kind of overlapping on the pretty design that goes all the way around the ukulele. This little wood thing was kind of overlapping on that design. But I thought maybe they couldn't move it over anymore, because then they would have to move the arm of the ukulele, and that would not go well. So they probably had to overlap it here. But it might be a good suggestion for them to make that just a little bit smaller so it's not overlapping on this beautiful edging. So that might be another reason they were on sale. Who knows? But there you go. If anyone's having that issue, I hope this helps them in making their ukulele sound better.